Hey guys, Mr. Barnes here again, bringing you another wonderful math video. And in this video, I'm going to take you through finding a quadratic function. Don't know why I have an S on that. Just going to take you to find one. That's it. Ha 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 ha. Hilarious. Okay, so um, we've seen these examples in class, and here's a beautiful example. I've got my wonderful soccer player here, and he's kicking the ball, and it goes some distance in a quadratic parabola path, as you might say, parabolic path. I.e. models a quadratic function. Um, and let's just make up some numbers here. Hopefully they work out wonderfully. And it goes some distance, say 20 meters. All right. Now, um, we want to know what the maximum height is. Well, I say when a maximum height of 5 meters. Okay. So when a maximum height of 5 meters, and then when a total distance of 20, and over here start at 0. Okay. So if we want to find a quadratic function, we know 3 forms: general, standard, transformational. By far the most useful, um, or the easiest to find, I should say, out of this guy is going to be standard or transformational. All right, so if we want to find either one of those, this is what we have to start with. We have to start with HT, VT, VS, REF. All right, horizontal translation. So my horizontal translation, the first thing we have to be able to do to figure out what HT VT is find the vertex. Because if you remember, your vertex is your HT and VT. All right. So your vertex, in this case, well, we know that a quadratic, a parabola is symmetric. So if when a total distance, so this must be 10, 5. So my vertex is 5, 10, or my HT is 10, my VT is 5. Okay, so right in the middle there, 10, 5. Now my VS, there's a couple different ways we can go about finding that. We'll skip it just for now. My VS, we're going to skip. My REF is going to be, yes, this guy is opening down. Okay, so there is a reflection. Now my VS, I could fill everything in and solve for VS. So like you could have did this. Um, your VS, whatever your number here is in front, is equal to, or y minus 5 is equal to x minus 10 squared. And if we happen to have another number that's on here, say 0, 0, we could simply plug and solve for VS. That's not what we want to do. Okay, that's complicated, more complicated than it needs to be. What we want to do is we want to use this formula. The vertical stretch is equal to the rise over the run squared. So you might have saw, if you saw where that was going to, where that came from. So the rise goes up 5. My run is 10, goes over 10. So that's how much it goes. The rise is 10, it rises 5, goes over 10 squared. Okay, so it ends up being 5 over 100, or 1 out of 20. So that's my vertical stretch. Remember, vertical stretch is always positive, 1 out of 20. So what we end up with is, now of course you could have took it as your 2 point. If you wanted to use a modified version of slope formula, which would be y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1 squared, then you could have took your 2 points to be 0, 0, and 10, 5. You always have this, how much do I rise and run to get to my vertex? Okay, that's how I think of it. Start from a point, I rose up 5, went over 10 to get to my vertex. So my rise was 5, my run was 10. All right, so I hope that sort of makes sense to you guys, but I think that formula is a lot easier to use than simply using algebra. If you want to use algebra, by all means, you could go ahead and use vertical stretch, y minus 5, and then x minus 10 squared. Take my point, either 0, 0 or 20, 0. I'll use 0, 0 obviously because it's easier, 0, 0. So I end up with vertical stretch. Let me try this again. My vertical stretch is equal to um, vertical stretch is equal to -5. Here we go, guys. -5 is equal to -10 squared, and vertical stretch is equal to 100 over -5, which is -20. So that number right there would be -20, which is the same number as this guy because we haven't flipped it yet. So when we put this guy in, we use our reflection to be -20 over y minus 5 is equal to x minus 10 squared. So technically we know this is 1 over vs, but we write it as just vs to find it, okay? So we'd flip it to go to the equation, just like we flip this guy, but this guy would just be -20 in it, so we wouldn't have to flip. All right, so like I said, this way is way easier. It gets you the answer. Now, what I've seen a lot of you guys in your tests and things like that is changing this guy to general form. There's really no need for that. We found the quadratic function. It doesn't say general form. If it says general form, then you have to use general form, of course. But if it doesn't, then just leave it like that. If you want to find the height, say, of the ball at a certain time, put in the time for x, and then bada bing, bada boom, just solve, right? Or what is the lateral distance at a certain height, or whatever it is. You can just put it in and solve in this way, or you can change it to standard. Standard, I like standard because it's useful for solving and easy to find, right? This is your standard form. So you flip this guy, your x stays the same, your opposite y, right? So opposite VT. So that's it. Okay, so keep that in mind. This way, confusing this way. Good. All right, so keep that in mind. Good luck with your studying. See you in class.